They say you should hate me because I'm the boys, meaning the police.
Mm-hmm.
They say I should hate you because you are black. The king said it best. Hate cannot drive out hate. Why? Only love could do that. So let's just do that. Think about that from both ends. The world is telling us. If you're a police officer, you don't like him. He's black, right? And the world's telling us, hey, if you're a individual of color or a minority, you don't like the police. You don't trust them. But at the end of the day, somebody who changed the world so much broke it down in the simplest form.
Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Bears United, and I'm joined today by the light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, It's the Popo. What's up, bro?
From this point on, I want to be Mr. Oh No, It's the Popo /100K.
Oh,
that's what I...
wait, hey, that was a weird flex. That was a low-key flex right there, bro. Hey, you see how he just tried to flex on us, Billy? You know, here I am feeling good about myself, feeling good. We just had a presentation today. Kids loved it. Lost my voice, was as indicative of a good presentation. And then he just gonna come and drop the 100K flex on us and then drop the mic.
I had to.
Hey, you know what? I'm happy, dog. And my boy, I couldn't be more proud. My boy AJ is over there expanding, bro. We only 80,000 followers away from you.
Yeah, that's gonna happen fast though.
Oh man, so hey, we just gonna call him Mr. 100K, bro. What's up, Mr. 100K?
Slow motion, man. Woke up with a little head cold, but we're gonna push through that because, as y'all know, we do not miss a recording of the podcast. Whether we traveling, sick, you name it, we are recording. So we're gonna push through this.
Yes, sir. No, we don't, man. And speaking of that, my voice sounds a little hoarse because I actually had a presentation this morning at Riverside Poly High School to a bunch of different students from different high schools and stuff. So shout out to them, man. It was a phenomenal presentation. I don't think people understand, like, you know, how difficult public speaking can be. I mean, not to say like I wasn't struggling or nothing like that, but it was one of those where, you know, I showed up and I asked the crowd, like, hey, you know, how many of you guys have heard me speak before? Usually I always do my initiative workshop, which is the one that's geared on police perception. And so probably about 90% of the crowd raised their hand, and Billy was with me. So, you know, I'm asking everybody, like, hey, you know, how many of you guys have seen this presentation? And like almost everybody raised their hand. So I was like, dang, man, like, I don't want to hit them with the same presentation, even though like I'm sure like they would have got something new out of it again, but I'm not gonna hit them with the same presentation. So on a dime, I told Billy, I said, hey man, queue up the next presentation. So Billy went up there with the computer, queued up the next presentation, man, and we went in, man. Like we definitely went in, man. Those kids came out loving life. And so you know, shout out to all those kids. They had a phenomenal time. I had a phenomenal time. And so anytime my voice is raspy, man, that's, like I said, it's indicative of a great presentation. But
ooh, that was a good word.
Oh, you see me trying to use big words out here, man. I've been in my dictionary, dog.
Using them $5 words. You know what's funny about you saying that is that's how we met. Remember, we were at that speaking engagement.
Oh, real talk.
In St. Louis, and I was so unprepared. And I'm not gonna say why. I ain't gonna throw nobody to the bus. But just know that I got there, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm about to do this little Q&A," and they were like, "Nah, you got like 30 to 45 minutes up there." And I'm like, what?
You got like stage.
You didn't come with that. Meanwhile, Ryan got a laptop. He got a mic. He got all this stuff, a bag full of goodies. I'm like, oh yeah,
I'm set up.
It's all bad. It's all bad. Just go ahead and let him do what he do.
Oh, I still remember that, bro. That was hilarious, man. I think we'll probably look back to that time, man. And that was really, man. And the significant thing about that was not only did I meet you that weekend, so I met you on that Saturday, and then the next day I just so happened to go to the ET conference, which was not initially planned because I was planning on going out to do the presentation on that Saturday, but I was listening to ET's podcast. And they were like, hey, yo, we're going to be out in St. Louis on this time. And it just so happened to be the same time that, you know, I was speaking. So I extended my trip. And so I went to the ET conference the next day, man. I met ET. I met Jorge. I met my boy Steve Hollowell. I met Diamond. I met a whole bunch of people. And then a year later, almost a year to the day later, I have you out at the conference. I have Jorge at the conference. I have ET at the conference. Diamond is there. So I'm like, man, it's just kind of crazy how God works full circle, man. And I met you guys on the other side of the country.
That's true. What did Drake say? God's plan, man. It's
God's plan. Hey, we might need to play that for this part of the episode, Billy. So yeah, man. So that's legit. Before we get into some of the other topics for today, AJ, you got the Law Enforcement Down Memorial?
I do. So our last recording of the podcast was September 8th, and we came in at 85 for the year. This is sad to say, but this number is good, but we still lost 3 lives. So as of today, we're coming in at 88, and today is the 21st of September. And those 3 names are Detective Joseph Paleo of NYPD. His end of watch was 9/9 of 19 due to 9/11 related illness. Investigator Dornell Kasut of the Tuscaloosa PD in Alabama. His end of watch was 9/16 of 19 due to gunfire. And then Captain Vincent Liberto Jr. of Maidenville PD, that's out in Louisiana. His end of watch was 9/20 of 19 due to gunfire.
Man, I don't think we've ever had a podcast where we've had time in between podcasts where nobody's passed away. So, I'm just waiting for that day. There's got to be one day at least, or one podcast at least, where we can get on here and say we have not had any line of duty deaths since the last time we recorded, man. So prayers go out to you and the families out there that lost those officers. Like I say, it's always tragic. And if you know somebody that needs help, please send them our way. And if there's anything that we can do as an organization, we will definitely do so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's move on, man. Let's talk about some current events, man. We got one thing I got to touch on before we move any further, man.
I already know what you about to say.
Hey, my man AB, bro.
Already knew
my
it.
Man, Antonio Brown, bro. What is going on? Like you said on the last episode, he's been playing mental games and head games with me and my emotions, bro, this whole year. And not only that, man, this is the second year in a row for my fantasy football. Last year, I drafted Le'Veon Bell first, hoping that my man was going to end his holdout, and my man never ended his holdout. So not only did I lose my first pick, but I ended up losing a lot more because I lost other picks because of that. And then this year, I pick up Antonio Brown first, and I lose him because now he's out. So, I mean, dog, what's going on?
Hey, he can have his own TV show. Like, this guy, man. And I hate to say that, like, he was accused of the sexual assault, so I'm not going to say he did it or, whatever. But just the fact that he is going through all of this stuff in such short time, he driving me. If I wasn't already bald, I would be bald messing with this dude because he's on my fantasy team. And I'm like changing the roster around. I'm like, oh man. So it's
bro. He's not only is he on my fantasy team, he's on both of my fantasy teams.
Oh,
so I'm
double
upset.
fail.
Yeah, double failure. And I'm like, man, I don't got nobody that can go to the waiver wire and find to replace him. And he balled out. He balled out the first game with New England.
He sure did. Sure did. So he was only gonna get better. So yeah, I mean, he had the helmet gate. He cussed out the owner. He was gone from the team. Not a Patriots. I mean, it's all of this, man. Like, yeah, he is. But he need to sit down somewhere.
But there's a lesson behind all that. The lesson is this, man. Like, I don't care what status or stature you're at in life, you're still human and you're still susceptible by the ills of life. Like, there's not one place you can get to in life, or not one point in your life that you can get to where you're just immune to the problems of the world. And now, granted, some of these may be self-induced, some of these may be for publicity matters, who knows, but you're still not immune to the problems of life. And so the difference is how do you make it out of these problems in life? And that's kind of what my presentation was about this morning, is like, hey, we're all human. And so what's your definition of success? I think far too many times people believe that the success or money defines your success, which money is probably one of the furthest things that defines how successful you are as a person. I truly believe like what you do for your family, what you do for your community, what you do that's going to be left behind when you leave this earth defines your success. You know what I mean? So,
100%.
I love AB. The dude is a talented dude as far as on the football field. But like I said, he's not immune to the problems of life.
No, and it's so ironic that there are. So I would say if you go around and you ask everyone in the United States like what their definition of success is, I would say 80 to 85% of the answers would be based around like financial gain of some sort, right? Like whether it's I want to be a millionaire, or I want to be the CEO of multiple businesses, or have multiple sources of income, or own real estate all over the world. Like everything that they say 80 to 85% of it will be based around financial success. And it's the ironic part about it is I think Kanye said it in one of his raps, and it's so true. Like, the people highest up have the lowest self-esteem.
Yep,
like
exactly.
You have these people who do become financially independent or extremely wealthy, and then that's all they tend to think about, right? So then everything else goes to the wayside, like their relationships with their family, their religious life, their happiness. Like, they're so focused on gaining the next step in their financial life that they forget about their life. Because
their affirmation is found in money. And that's the sad part. You know, the affirmation that they have is found in money. So if I make $100,000 a year, it affirms me that I'm doing something in life that's worth something, which is far from the truth. You know what I mean? And so you'll notice you'll get to $100,000, but as soon as you get to $100,000, you're going to feel like, man, I need to make $200,000. So success is not defined by how much money you make. So, you know, AB, man, the dude is talented, man. I just wish my man can get his head together and man, get back on my fantasy team, dog. You costing me money, bro.
Yeah, I had to sit him down. He might stay sitting down for the remainder of the season.
I'm gonna kick him up. I honestly don't see any other team pick him up right now because he's what's called as a liability right now. And I'm gonna transition right now. Antonio Brown is now classified as a liability. So now I'm gonna transition and bring this back to law enforcement. Are you a liability at your police department that you work at right now? And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Are you a liability at your police department right now? Like, what are you doing every single day that's going to prevent you from being a liability at your department? So one of the things that I've learned as running a business organization is that you look at liabilities. Like, what is a liability? Like, what's going to cost me money as an organization, or what's going to cause my business to fail? And I often have to look at the people behind my organization, which is why I'm so specific at who I bring in a part of my organization, because I realize reputation is everything. And the moment I lose my reputation is the moment I lose everything. And so a lot of times as officers, and don't get me wrong, I've fallen into the same trap, is I'm always thinking about numero uno. And because I'm thinking about numero uno, I'm not looking at the organizational success as a department. I'm not looking at the overall picture. And so we get so pissed off at decisions that are made at the top, but that's only because we're looking at it as through the lens of numero uno instead of looking at the lens of, am I a liability? And so a lot of times what organizations are trying to do is they're trying to reduce liabilities, because at the end of the day, liability is going to cause them to lose money. Losing money is going to cost them to fire people, making people lose their job. And so ask yourself the question, am I becoming a liability for my department? Am I becoming a liability for my family? Am I becoming a liability for my church? Whatever it is, are you becoming a liability? And how do you become a liability? You become a liability the moment you stop moving forward and the moment you start getting complacent. Absolutely. That's how you become a liability.
Absolutely. And then take it a step even further and ask yourself, am I a liability? Am I an anchor, or am I an asset? Because no matter what situation in life you're in, whether it's your job, whether it's your family, whether it's your religious life, your friends, what have you, you could categorize yourself into those three things. And we all know one of these people, right? Or one of these types of individuals. If you're an asset, you're bringing something to the table. My guy Ryan is an asset in my life. Like, he's always pushing me to be better. He's always checking up on me, making sure I'm good in my religious life, my family life, you know, everything, right? But then there's anchors. These are the people who are just indifferent. Like, no matter what's going on, I'm gonna just do the bare minimum. I'm gonna get by. I don't really care about what's going on over here. I don't really care about what's going on over here. You're an anchor. I gotta worry about pulling you along. Or you're a liability. You're someone that's negative. You're always complaining. Well, why don't we do it this way? Why don't we do it that way? Stop complaining and doing something. You're worse than the anchor, right? Like, you're pulling me backwards at this point. You have to ask yourself, take it that step further. What are you? Be honest with yourself. And then when you figure out which classification you are, take it that step further and do something about it.
Man, and so the reason why I wholeheartedly agree with that statement, and the reason why I say Antonio Brown is, because think about this, man. Antonio Brown is arguably the best receiver in the NFL right now, on the best team in the NFL right now. He proved the first game that he started for the New England Patriots, he proved that he was going to be an asset to the New England Patriots. But here's the crazy part about it, though, was the value that Antonio Brown brought to the New England Patriots for the 2019-2020 season, was it more important than the liability that he could cost them by his antics off the field? And so what I mean by that is, think about it. You have the most powerful football team in the NFL right now that got rid of him and sacrificed him helping them get to the Super Bowl because they realized that this dude can actually cost us more harm than help at the end of the day. Yeah, he may get to help us get to a Super Bowl this year, but the longer we keep him on this team, if he does something that damages the reputation of the New England Patriots, now he becomes a liability and ruins it for teams beyond 2019 and 2020. So he was more of a liability as opposed to an asset in this situation. And so ask yourself that question. And if you're somebody that wants to become a police officer or get a job anywhere, you have to ask yourself, am I more of a liability or am I more of an asset right now? And you can look at that however you want to look at it. A liability meaning, hey, I'm out of shape. If I'm out of shape, that means I'm more of a liability than an asset, because the moment a police department hires you, that means the more apt you are to go out there and use force when you shouldn't have used force. That means the more apt you go out there and actually cause more harm to yourself or your partner because you weren't in shape. So you're more of a liability. An asset would be somebody that's saying, hey, look, I'm in shape. I can go out there and catch somebody. I can go out there and save a life if I need to because I'm in shape. Assets versus liability. Liability meaning, hey, are you not the best report writer? Are you not the best when it comes to your grammar? You know what I mean? Because when you become a police officer, one of the main things we have to do is write reports. So if you can't write a decent report, you're now going to become a liability, because if you screw a report up, your name and the department's name is on it. So again, assets and liability. So ask yourself that question. If you want to become a police officer, or if you're a current police officer, am I an asset or am I a liability? If you keep getting in trouble at work, ask yourself, I'm probably a liability because I'm not doing one or two of the three things. If you look at the category, you say, man, I'm more of an asset than a liability, then maybe you should be the one that's getting promoted and stuff like that. So I think that's a good discussion, man, because, and I just thought about that as we're discussing it right now. Assets versus liability. And when you have the bigger picture report, that's how you look at it.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, it's no secret that I pour into the youth. The area I work, like pretty much like every young adult that I meet, like I want to pour into them and make them or give them an opportunity to at least become like a better adult. And something that I tell a lot of the kids at the high school that I go to every single day is bring a backpack no matter where you go. And I'm not talking about physically bring a backpack. It's a metaphor, right? Because no matter where you go, like you should bring something to the table, and you should have so much that you could bring to the table that it fills up a backpack. So bring a backpack wherever you go. Always bring something to the table. Always bring something to the table.
I'm using that. Copyright Ryan Tillman.
Right. But it's true. I mean, if you think about it, like how many times have you came across somebody, you're like, man, this person doesn't bring nothing to my life. If anything, like he or she is more of a headache, right? And you dread every single time that person is around because they suck the fun out of every situation, or they're just a Debbie Downer, or they slow down your progress, or even if it's none of that, you still have to worry about like entertaining this person. They're still not bringing nothing to the table. Like, at least bring something to the table.
Got to. I can't stand people that don't bring nothing to the table. And there's been times in my life where I felt I've been a part of a group and I'm like, man, I can't bring nothing to the table right now. So if you're not bringing nothing to the table, at least come with an open heart and open ears to listen. So that way later on you can bring something to the table, because there's nothing wrong with going to the table knowing you may not have nothing to bring, but at least you might have the humility to sit down and be open enough to learn. So that way next time when you do show up to the table, you ain't showing up to that party empty-handed. But if you keep coming up, mooching off everybody else, not bringing no bread, not bringing no sodas, not bringing no dessert, and you just keep showing up freeloading, eventually somebody's gonna get tired of it and say, nah, dog, they just not gonna invite you to the table no more.
100%. Your mindset should not only be next time that I come to this table, I'm gonna bring something. Your mindset should be next time I come to this table, I'm bringing everything, because you gave me the tools that I needed to go out here and get something. So this is my way of thanking you for feeding me, right? You led me to water. You led me to the water. I drank. Now I'm going to come back with some more stuff for y'all. Man,
so that kind of leads me into this topic. Man, God has been so good in my life and in your life. And, so all you guys know, when we had our conference August 1st, we had Eric Thomas come out and speak. And so since that time, ET has come out to speak. Me and ET have actually started to get a better relationship. If you guys listen to his podcast, you guys know he's moving to California, and because he's been on the East Coast his whole life. And so not only is he coming to California, but man, I actually have an active relationship with him. We went out to, I think it was Cheesecake Factory the other day, and just sat down and ate. Man, it was me, him, and then one of my really, really good friends, mentors and everything, and business partners for one of the school districts. And we just sat down and just talked about different ways that we can better our communities. And so the crazy part about it is ET wouldn't just sit down with me just to sit down with me. Like, I think ET sits down with me because he knows I already have brought something to the table for him. And this is not about like, hey, I only want you to be around if you can give something to me. Like, that's not what that's about. But when you're around people that are on a mission to change stuff, when they're on a mission to do work, then people are just going to naturally want to be in your presence. And so my constant grind of trying to pour into these youth, trying to pour into everybody else, I think ET realized, like, man, like, it's almost infectious, and it almost makes him want to, hear me out to see what we have. And so, man, we had a phenomenal business meeting. We're actually going to be working together, man, which is so dope. And to think that, our influence is expand to places where we're actually going to be able to do some work with people, man, it's just phenomenal, man. It's nothing but a godsend. And again, we don't do this for any publicity. I don't do this for any money. I do it because I truly care. And so, that's one of those situations that every single one of those people that were at that table when we had that meeting, every single one of us has a value to bring to the table. And so I'm going to continue to harp on this because I know we have a lot of people in here right now that are listening to our podcast or watching our podcast that are getting discouraged, saying, I can't get hired as a police officer. I've been struggling. I keep getting DQ'd, or you're just saying, I can't get this job. It may not be as an officer. You're just saying, I can't get this job. What I want you to start doing is reevaluating what value and what assets do you have to bring to the table. Because here's the thing is, like, a lot of times we like to look at it from a broad approach. Like, well, I am talented. Well, I know I can be a police officer. I know I can be a good, personal trainer. Yeah, but it's so broad. Like, I need you to get so specific right now and say, I can bring A, B, C, D, and E to the table. And this is how good I am in every single one of those areas. Because once you identify those areas in your own life, it's going to make it so much more easier for you to sell yourself now to the person that you're trying to get the job from. And so that's what I need you to do right now is I need you to take a self-evaluation of yourself and say, man, what value do I bring to the table? Because if you don't bring no value, I need you to be so honest with yourself to say, like, man, like, I don't got no value right now. I honestly don't got no value. And if you say that, if you can honestly say that, well, bam, now we have a place to start and say, well, shoot, this is why I ain't getting hired. You know what I mean? And it may be one of those things that you have something in your background that's prevented you. So if that's the case, because a lot of people that listen to us, you may have something in your background that is preventing you from getting hired. So now, unless it's something crazy like a felony, you've done like some drugs, some cocaine, methamphetamine, whatever it may be. If it's nothing that crazy, then what I need you to do is I need you to say, look, this is what I've done, but this is how my value outweighs those liabilities that are from my past. When you can now get that bar of, assets and value higher than the liability, now it makes people want to hire you. But right now, your liability is way higher than the value that you're going to bring to that department or whatever organization you're trying to get hired at.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And then latch on to people who are where you want to be. If you find somebody that's if you're considering joining the police department, find as many police officers as you can and try to become friends with them and just try to soak up every single bit of knowledge you can because they've been through it. They've done it. They'll help you along the way. Like, don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. Man. But you're absolutely right. Like, you have to be honest with yourself. If you're not honest with yourself, you're going to be that type of dude that's like, well, I bring X, Y, and Z to the table when you know that's not the truth. And then you're going to be sitting there questioning yourself, like, why am I being hired? Because you're really not bringing nothing to the table. The moment you take a step back and look in the mirror and go, you know what? I'm average Joe Schmo, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you can't expect to get something that the average Joe Schmo has if you're being the average Joe Schmo. You just can't, right? Like,
exactly.
Bring something to the table.
Exactly, man. So what I want to do is I want to transition real quick. We actually made a post on our Instagram the other day. It was actually Joe Rogan. And so I'm going to play the video and then I want to discuss it because I think it's cause for a good conversation. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that right now.
Most of them, I think, have PTSD, and they don't. It's not addressed. Most people have disdain for them. Almost everybody they meet's a liar.
Yeah.
Because you meet a guy like, oh, I didn't know how fast I was going. Oh, this is my house. Oh, I just can't find my keys. Like, everyone's lying to you, and you're the enemy. You are a professional enemy, and you're wearing an enemy outfit.
Yeah.
Right? For all these criminals,
That's
you're the
true.
enemy. It's a terrible way to live. And
Yeah.
we need them badly.
Can't win on that job, I don't think.
No, you can't. And people you don't get paid enough. People don't respect you. They don't appreciate you. You know,
They don't want you around until they want you around.
Yes.
And then you're not there fast enough.
Exactly. And then you suck. Yeah.
So that was actually pretty interesting. That was off of Joe Rogan's podcast. So what were your thoughts, AJ? I know you had liked that video, so I'm assuming you watched it and heard it. What were your thoughts when you had initially heard that?
Man, that hit so close to home because, as most of you know, I went through a little situation not too long ago, and it made me really realize how crazy our job is. Our job is so crazy that it not only affects, and I'll use me, right? Like being a police officer is so crazy that it not only affects me, it affects every single person that I love and every single person that loves me. And let me break that down, what that looks like, right? I have got numerous calls from my mother in the middle of the night, early in the morning, late at night. Hey, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, Mom, I'm fine. Why? She's like, well, I just seen a police officer got injured in X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, nope, Mom, you're on this list. If something happens to me, you're going to be one of the first to be called. She's like, okay, I just want to check up on you. My wife has to deal with it, right? Like, my wife is so accustomed to being married to a police officer. She already knows when we go to a restaurant which table I'm looking at, which seat I'm gonna sit at. She already knows when I'm walking in public which hand I gotta have free, where I'm gonna walk, why I'm maneuvering a certain way. If I end a conversation abruptly with somebody, she already knows why. Like, it has affected her that much so that I don't even have to say nothing. She already knows. My brother has had to defend me multiple times just because people have called him talking stuff about a police officer in general, not even me, right? Because now my brother sees what we deal with because his little bro is a police officer and he sees what I deal with. So when he hears people talking about police officers, he's like, well, hold on. No, you don't understand. Maybe that police officer was doing this because of this, or maybe he did that because of that, right? My friends, oh my goodness, my friends will call me up nonstop to this day. Hey, man, I had to cut somebody out the other day, man. They was talking about you and, you know, how you did this and, you know, the police this and police that. And it's just like, think about that. Like, what other job in the world, not even the United States, in the world affects every single person you love and vice versa?
Man, so you hit all the nails on the head with that one, man. And when I heard that clip from Joe Rogan's thing, he touched on a few things, and I wrote those things down. The first one was disdain. He was like, there's so many people that have a disdain for officers. Now, I would actually argue that it's not as many as we think it is. I truly believe that the media makes it seem like there's a lot more people that don't like police officers than really do support police officers. And the reason I say that is because I'll go out often, and it's not just in the city that I work, but a lot of different places, and people genuinely do support police officers. So, but I do realize that there is a lot of disdain in some ways. For example, one of the things, well, actually, now I'll get to that point in a minute because I want to come back to that. So you do have disdain. The other thing is that he touched on something that was so critical, and he says that a majority of the people that we deal with in our day job are liars. Like think about that statement. Like, a majority of the people that we deal with are liars. And it goes back to this point that we've made before. 90% of the people in your community are doing good things. Like, 90% of people in community are doing what they're supposed to be doing. You're not going to have an interaction with them. 10% of those ones are the ones that are causing a lot of the ruckus. But police officers spend 90% of their time dealing with the 10% of the people that are causing all the ruckus. So if I'm spending 90% of the time dealing with the 10% of the people that are causing all the ruckus, then what happens is I start to view things out of the scope for the 90% of the people I believe are doing the crooked things, and only viewing 10% of the people as doing the right things. And so look at that as when it comes to lying now. Like, it is so hard to have a conversation with somebody and not think they're lying, because you deal with people that are being deceptive all the time. And what's the number one what would you say, AJ, is the number one thing somebody that says that's lying about something to you, what's the number one thing that they're first going to tell you when they're lying about something?
I ain't do it.
Yep. I didn't do it. I'm not lying. I'm not lying. I didn't do it. And then after you go around and around and around and around in circles, the truth finally comes out. And so in your mind, do you know what that does to the psyche of the mind? The psyche of the mind is like, man, like, I'm having this conversation with this other human being, and he just flat out kept telling me that he was not lying, he was not lying, he was not lying. And then all of a sudden I found out, bam, he's lying. So take that one interaction and then multiply that by 10. Then multiply whatever that number is by another 10. And then multiply that by another 10. And that continues to happen day in, day out. How do you really believe that police officers start to see other people in the community when they have interactions with them? But then if you go down to what he says later, is he says police officers can't win. So you take a police officer who majority of the people he's dealing with on his day job have been lying to him, and then you come across that person that really isn't lying, but yet the officer kind of believes they're lying. Now we look like the bad guys, because unfortunately, yeah, we felt this person was lying when they genuinely weren't lying, but yet they, in the eyes of that person that we're talking to, they can care less about any of the other interactions we've had, because that interaction is specific to them, which undoubtedly I agree, like you can't make your basis for all the other ones, but you're not putting yourself in the shoes of the officer who's had these thousands and thousands and thousands of contacts with people where all people do is just they lie to us. And so unfortunately you start to think that everybody's a liar. And so as a police officer, I mean, how would you say, AJ, like, how do you get out of that to not think that everybody's lying, or to at least try to still give people the benefit of the doubt?
Oh man, yeah, that is a great question. And I think, I was actually thinking about that while you were going through this, and this is legitimately my first time being asked this question, man. So I like it. I think what has worked for me is a majority of people that I talk to, and this is just me speaking personally, are not lying to me. And here's why. It's because I'm speaking to them in a non-official manner, right? So I go to calls to service, right? Like I do my due diligence, and I take my runs for service and all of that. But when I'm not like responding to the radio, I'm at the schools talking to the kids. I'm in the neighborhood just talking with people. I'm showing up to barbecues. So I'm having normal conversations with the people that I serve, to where I would say a majority of police officers who don't take that extra step, and I get it, it's not part of your job. Like no one's going to force you out of your cruiser to go to a barbecue and do these things. But I would say a majority of police officers that don't do that are dealing with that, right? Like they're dealing with a lot of liars and people who are lying to them, and they build that wall up to where me, like, it's kind of like the opposite for me, right? Like I look at everybody like as being friendly, and they love me, right? Like I drive through the neighborhood and I'm like, oh yeah, well, that's Steve right there, that's John, and man, that's an awesome point you just brought up, man. I never really thought about that. So that just goes to show you, like, take that extra step, do it for your own health.
Yep. And so what I want to highlight too on that same topic is that I don't want you guys to get it confused. Like, I'm not saying that only criminals lie, or this is something we only deal with criminals. Lying is human nature. Like it's something that all humans do. The best person in the world will lie to somebody, because it's a defense mechanism. It's something you do automatically. But when, as a police officer, when you're submerged in that all the time, because when you do something wrong and you don't want to get or feel the consequences of something, your natural reaction for the most part is going to be to lie, because you're afraid of what's going to come next. So a lot of times lying is not because somebody's intentionally trying to do it, but subconsciously they're doing it because they are afraid of the consequences to come after that. But as a police officer, that's what we're submerged in every single day. And so going back to the point what I'm making with you, AJ, is like, it is hard to look at somebody as they're not lying to you. And so there is other ways that you have to come as a police officer and still give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, I still always will give somebody the benefit of the doubt. I will. But in the back of my mind, it is there. Like, this person could be lying to me. So I can't just automatically go out there and assume like everybody's telling me the truth. That's the first mistake you can make, because when you automatically assume that somebody's telling you the truth is the moment you're going to get burned. But at the same time, I don't necessarily have to outwardly convey to them that I think they're lying to me. So secretly in my mind, I'm like, you're probably lying to me, but I'm not going to let my explicit expression show you that I think I'm lying to you, because if I do that, then you're naturally going to go into your shell and just nobody wants to say anything else to you. And so I think if you're an officer listening to this, make sure you listen, or you're dissecting your outwardly expressions or your nonverbal communication skills, because I was listening to something the other day and they did a study and it said 75%, or it said people listen or view your message 75% through your nonverbal communication. So what that means is that 75% of what you do or express is what people are going to receive from the message that you give them. Which means the other, what is that, 25%? I don't know my math. What's left over after
you
75?
asking the wrong one. Yeah, it sounds 25. Yeah.
Yeah, 25. So the other 25% is what people will actually hear from you. Don't be making fun of my non-math skills. But that means 75% of what people are going to hear from you comes from your nonverbal expression. So as a police officer, even though you may think somebody's lying to you, you can't communicate that you think they're lying through your outward expression to them. And that's how I think you get over that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You can't hit them with the something stink face. You're just like, stop lying. Ugh.
Exactly.
But if for any civilian that's listening to this or watching this, just to put things into perspective, I'm sure Ryan has done the same, and I'm sure a majority of police officers have experienced the same thing over and over and over again. We're not speculating someone's lying. I'm talking about we seen somebody on video doing something.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And then we came up to them afterwards and said, "Hey, why did you do this?" And they're still like, "Oh, I didn't do it." And you're like, "I seen you do it.
I got you on
film.
video.
I seen you.
I got you on video.
I seen you stabbing." You got the knife in your hand.
Exactly. I always tell people, like, usually the questions I ask you, I'm not questioning you because I want to know. I usually already have the answers to what I'm asking you. I just want to see if you're going to tell me the truth, because the truth is going to tell me a lot about how this conversation is going to go. So
the truth shall set you free.
Yep. So then some of the other topics that Rogan brought up was we are the enemy. And so I understand what he's saying in this, because what he's saying is we are viewed as being enemies by others. And no matter what you do, if I go out and I pull you over and I give you a ticket, you're automatically going to feel a certain type of way towards me, because I've made your life, more of a hassle now, because you either have to pay a fine, go to court, do traffic school. So I could have went out and won a Nobel Peace Prize, fed 1 million kids, saved somebody from a burning building. But the moment I give you a ticket, you could care less about all those other things you did, because things I did, because I've now affected you personally, which is something that's a part of my job, which is giving me a ticket. So, and I'm not going to don't get me wrong, I'm not going to lie to you. If an officer gives me a ticket, it's kind of hard for me to be happy about getting a ticket. Like, it's very hard to just be like, "Oh, thank you so much, officer, for giving me that ticket. I needed it so much, sir. I need to go pay that $500 right now. You just saved my life." Like, that's unrealistic. Like, yeah, there might be some people out there that act that way, but I get it. It's a part of our job that nobody likes. And so when you go to a job where you have to do something that not a lot of people are going to be fan favorites of, that's difficult. That plays a part of an officer's psyche. So what do you think about that?
Well, the funny part about that is I would say a majority of things that we have to do for our job are viewed in a negative manner, right? So let me break that down. If we go out and we write 100 tickets a day, what are we considered? A jerk. There's all sorts of nicknames, right? Like, you're a traffic guy and you just doing this for the court time and all of this. But in all actuality, a ticket is set up to remind you not to do it again, right? Like, I could let you off with a warning. Hey, don't do this again, right? In the back of your mind, in the back of my mind at least, if we being transparent with each other, I'm gonna be like, all right, bet. Skirt, I'm out, right?
Yep.
As soon as I turn the corner, I'm going over the speed limit again, right? But if you get smacked with a ticket, right? So now you got to dig in your pocket and pay some money. You're going to be like, well, hold on.
You're going to think twice.
I can't afford this, right? So let me slow down for a while until I get my bank account right again, right?
Yep.
What else does that look like? Police officers have to make arrests. right? So we go out and rearrest somebody, and the community sees that, and they're like, when I don't want to say the community as a whole, but if someone sees that, it's looked at in a negative light, right? Like, why are you taking that person's freedom? Not knowing that this person just stabbed somebody or did X, Y, and Z, or just beat his wife or beat her husband, you know, whatever, right? A lot of things that we do are viewed in a negative light, and that's exactly it. So to go back to my point is if you remove yourself from the official capacity of the job, like things that we are forced to do, and put yourself around people who are doing positive things in the community, it tends to take away from that. You also have to have an outlet.
Oh,
like,
you
no
have
matter
to.
what in
You
this
have
job,
to.
like you have to have an outlet, whether it's a spiritual outlet, whether it's you going to the gym, whether it's you running, swimming, playing tennis, whatever. And I'm not talking about going to the bar and pounding drink after drink every single night, because that is not a outlet. That is a false outlet, and
cover
eventually
up.
you will explode. Yes. So you have to have an outlet as well. But I'm telling, like, just try it. Just try it.
Man.
Just go out into the community. You see some kids playing basketball, grab the ball, shoot it with them. You'll feel better. You will feel better. Trust me when I say this. You will feel better. Now, you will have those kids who don't want to play basketball with you. That's a barrier that you're going to have to break.
Yep.
But the moment you break that barrier, oh my goodness, it's better than the paycheck. It is better than the paycheck.
Breaking Barriers United.
That's exactly it. That is exactly it. I just went to one of the kids I mentor's football game last night, and I showed up, and the bleachers were like coming at me like, "That's Officer AJ. Can I take a picture?" And the school resource officer is looking at me like, man, this is crazy. Like, you are a celebrity here. And I had to take a step back after I left and think to myself, like, man, how dope was that? Like, I just got paid to do that. Like, I would have did that. I would have paid to experience that. But it's because I put the time in. Like, I remove myself from this official capacity, and I meet people on their level.
You know what's crazy about all that, though, is like every single person that listens to this podcast possesses the ability to go out and do the same thing. Like, think about it.
100%.
Like
100%.
You're not doing it like, I love you, you my boy, but you're not doing it because you possess some extraordinary ability. Like,
Right.
you've noticed a talent that God has given you, but you're going out there and you do it. So when you have school resource officers that look at another school resource officer that's doing something crazy, it's not because he has an extraordinary ability. He's just being attentive, and he's being intentional on the work that he's doing in that school. So everybody, like, for example, I went to the gym the other day. I walk out, and as I'm walking out, somebody tells me, they're like, "Hey man, like, are you the one that has the podcast? Like, I listen to your stuff." And I'm like,
Nice.
"Yeah, man, like, that's crazy. Like, how'd you know that?" And so I'm just thinking, like, man, like, that's crazy, but that's not by fluke. That's not because I'm some special person. That's just because I just been intentional about the way we do our work. You know, I go out and I talk to other people, and you know, I had a kid that went out to Chipotle, and he was wearing a BBU shirt. And so he DMs me, and he's like, "Hey man, like, when I went to Chipotle, the person there, they recognized the shirt, man. They gave me half off my order when they recognized the shirt." And I was like, man, like, that's not because I'm some special person. It's just because I've been intentional with the work we're doing. And so if you are listening to this, if you are a police officer, if you're not a police officer, you need to recognize that you don't need to be some extraordinary person. Like, one of the best things that I got, man, when I was chilling with ET was I noticed that ET, man, like, there was nothing that was extraordinary about him. Like, he was just a man as much as a man as I am. You know what I mean? But what was so extraordinary about him was my man was just real. Like, my man was, like, he wasn't trying to be somebody he wasn't. He took time to sit down and listen to me. He took time to be intentional with his words, and he directed them to me. He called me by my name, Ryan. Like, I don't think people understand the importance of calling somebody by their name. Like, that is so important for somebody, because think about it. The name that you get at birth, like, that's your identity, right? Like, if your name is your identity, like Ryan Tillman, like, that's my name. So if somebody uses, "Hey Ryan, what's up? Hey Tillman, what's up?" Like, that is personal to me. Like, that's my identity. Like, if I lost everything, the last thing I can have is my name, right? Even God in the Bible talks about he's given every single one of us not only our earthly name, but we also have a name to him that's specific to him. But so that way, when we die, he's going to call us by whatever that spiritual name is, and we're going to know it. So think about how the power of a name. So as an officer, when you go out there and call somebody by name, instead of calling them out of character or saying boy or get over here, man, like, you know, whatever it may be. Like, sometimes it might just be that simple just to call somebody by their name. So what I do is I make it a habit of, like, if I go to like a food store, or if I go to like, you know, LA Fitness to go work out, and I see people that wear name badges, I'll be like, if I was talking to you, like, hey, thank you, AJ, I appreciate it. And whether you realize it or not, subconsciously, you're thinking like, man, this dude just said my name. Because think about it, we don't often hear people call us by our name. Like, it's so weird. But people wear name tags for a reason. They don't wear a name tag just because the boss told them to wear a name tag. There's name tags for a reason. And so it's for us, the person on the receiving end, to see what the person's name is, so you can address them by whatever it is. Same reason why we wear name badges when we go to work. If somebody sees my name badge that says Tillman, hey, Tillman, hey, Officer Tillman, because it's personalized to you. So that little bit, going that extra mile of maybe just calling a person by their name, whatever it may be, goes a long way. So just take that, just for like as simple as it is, like, I'm giving you guys steps to start becoming more of an asset as opposed to becoming a liability. Go ahead, bro.
Bruh, man, it is so funny you brought that up. Like I said, last night I went to my homeboy's football game. It's his first year on the football team. So as I'm walking in, I see his next door neighbor's little sister, and she's like standing outside of the gate. And what caught my eye, actually, she was talking to two boys. So I'm like, yeah, we shutting that down ASAP.
Yeah, we shutting that
so
down
I go
right
over there.
now. Big brother coming.
Yeah, so I'm talking to the dudes like, hey, who are y'all? And they're like, oh, nah. And I was like, nah, nothing. I was like, this is like my little sister. Y'all got to kick rocks. So she laughed, and she's like, oh, you so embarrassing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, why aren't you in there? And she's like, they not letting me in. And I'm like, why not? And she's like, well, because I don't go to the school. So you have to go to the school to get into the game at certain games, right? Yeah. So I was like, really? I was like, who said you couldn't come in? And she was like, that girl right there. She had like all this attitude, right? And I'm like, Miss Jackson? And like, you could tell, like, so my angel is the girl that I was talking to. You could tell her face kind of lit up like, oh, you know her. I'm like, yeah, I know her. So I go,
I'm sorry, Miss Jackson.
Ooh. Yeah. So I'm talking to Miss Jackson. I go, hey, Miss Jackson, how you doing? I give her a hug. And I go, hey, is there any chance I could get this young lady in right here? And she was like, nope. She was like, only students who go to the school could get in, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, oh. I was like, she's like a family friend. I go, she's actually like a sister to Macion, who's a kid that I mentor. He's playing in the game. And she was like, oh, so you know her? And I was like, oh, yeah, I know her. I was like, hold on 1 second. And I was like, my angel. And she looks, I was like, come here. So I walk over, I introduced the two by name. And as soon as I did that, Miss Jackson was like, you know what, sweetie? It's okay. Go right on in. Wow. Because she seen that I wasn't just saying that I knew her to get her in. As soon as I said her name, she was like, oh, like, you really know her? Like, yeah, I know her.
You know her.
I know her. Yeah, I know her son. Like I'm over their house on holidays, right? Like, if I'm working, even if I'm not working, I'll swing by on holidays. But it's so funny you said that, because that was something that I realized afterwards when I got in the cruiser and I was just kind of like soaking in everything that happened at the football game. I was like, man, the moment that I said their names, both of them were like, whoa. Oh,
it's crazy. It almost stops. It almost stops you in their tracks. So if you're listening to this podcast, if you don't typically call somebody by their name, go out and call somebody by their name and just notice, like, you're going to see, I bet you a better sense of customer service that they give to you just off top, because you've now personalized that relationship, and it goes so far. And so, you know, these are everything I'm telling you, everything that AJ's telling you. I'm not just telling you this because this is how I feel, or I think that this could work, or, you know, I read it in a book somewhere. This is stuff that I experienced. Like, God has done amazing things in my life. Like, there's no reason why, like, one of my mentors, like, he hit me up last night just randomly, like, it was late too. And he was like, hey, Ryan, you know, me and this other guy who's another one of my mentors, they're both of my mentors, they were at an event together last night. He was like, hey, man, I just got outbid for some dugout tickets to Angels. He was like, and so we were both talking, and even though I got outbid, he was like, we were both talking, we're going to go to the game together, but we're going to invite you and your wife to it. And so I'm just thinking like, man, like that stuff doesn't happen by chance. It's because I've taken the time not just to get to know somebody because I want something from them. I'm getting the time to just meet them because that's what human beings need to do. Like, I think we get so fixated on these phones and forget to have a conversation with each other. Like, it's so crazy, bro. Like, when I'm at school sometimes, I'll be walking and I'll see some of my kids just walking. And then when I say, hey, how you doing? They like stop in their tracks like, oh, snaps. Like, what am I supposed to do right now? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, oh, I'm supposed to say hi right now? Like, oh, yeah, hey, how you doing? Like, we've gotten to a point where people forget how to dialogue with one another. So, like, just dialogue with people. And the reason I think we got here, because we were talking about how people view the police officers as just being the enemies. Well, if you're the police officer, the way you get people out of that is by treating people like people. You know what I mean? Now, on the flip side of that, though, is we need the people of the community to treat officers like people. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, stop treating us like a badge. Like, I think sometimes people treat us like a badge, which is not obviously a human being. They're treating us like a badge that represents hate and, you know, all these other polarized things that the media's created. That's not necessarily true. So they treat us like that symbol as opposed to treating us like a human being. So stop treating us to whatever you think it represents. Treat me for me being Ryan Tillman. And so if we can just do those two simple things, I think it fixes a bigger problem. And it kind of goes back into what the next point I had was, is how Joe Rogan said is we can't win. It seems like police officers can't win. Like, bro, I heard this example the other day and I was like, man, I'm gonna use that again. So I'm listening to this police officer talk. He was a sergeant and he was saying, like, imagine your house getting broken into. And not only does it get broken into, but everything is taken out of your house. Like all your personal values, your pictures, your money, your social security card, your license, everything is taken from your house. And so police show up on scene, and part of what they need to do to go out and find who broke into your house and recover all your stuff is they need to go interview your whole neighborhood. They need to interview all people on your block. And so they have to go knock on doors. They have to sit people down on the curb. They have to interview you. They have to ask you, where were you where were you when this happened? What are you looking at? And all the other stuff. Do you have video? And so the perspective of the victim is like, man, these officers are doing a phenomenal job because they are actually trying to get my stuff back. But what's the perspective of those 10 other people that are now being questioned about that investigation that they're doing? Their perspective is like, man, these officers are just, they're out here accusing me of being a suspect. They're out here stopping me thinking I'm doing something wrong. They're invading my privacy because they want access to my video. And so the perspective of one person is like, man, these dudes are doing a great job. But the perspective of 10 other people is like, these guys are out here violating people's rights. Knowing, like, if you see officers detaining somebody and questioning them, or maybe they're not even detaining them, but having a conversation and somebody else is recording it and putting out that online, now the perspective now becomes is these guys are doing something and questioning somebody that had no business to be doing. And it's like, they can't win. We can't win because we're trying to do our job, but yet it's viewed upon as others as like now we're impeding or invading on somebody else's privacy.
Yeah. I'm glad you touched on the social media aspect of that, because that is exactly it. And that is exactly why we are in the shoes. Not 100%, because, you know, we'll be the first to address that there are some crazy cops out there who don't deserve to be police officers.
100%.
But that is a majority of why we are in the situation we're in, is because someone can call. You could be driving down the street. Put yourself in a scenario. You're driving down the street. You're stopped at a red light. You look over. You see 5 dudes beating up one person. I'm talking, you could tell it's not a mutual fight. They're stomping this person out. One of those individuals pulls out a gun. All 5 of those individuals are dressed the same. You're a concerned citizen. You call 911. 911, what's your emergency? Hey, I'm at cross and don't cross. There's 5 individuals. This is what they're wearing. One of them has a gun. They were just beating up somebody at this intersection. Great. Okay, we're on our way. The police officer shows up. They see all 5 of these individuals there. What are they going to do? They're going to put their guns out. They're going to have at gunpoint. Let me see your hands. So now every single one of those individuals in the back of their head, like, oh, they messing with us, blah, 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 blah. When really what happened was they was beating the person up. One person pulled out a phone to record the fight because that's the society we live in. You, being the person who called 911, thought it was a gun because you were amped up and you're not used to seeing situations like this. So now they're like, man, we don't got no gun. Get out of here. People who are driving by see what? A police officer with 5 people at gunpoint. So now what's that person's perspective? And it snowballs. And the fact that you could have it on social media immediately, live while it's happening, takes it to a whole other level.
Man, you just brought up something just so crazy. And that kind of gets me back to you can't win. So I'm going to speak from the heart with this one because it's affected me, not mentally, because it really doesn't bother me anymore. I'm to a point now in my life where a lot of stuff is not going to get to me mentally just because I've had so much that's happened that it's forced me to be and develop a level of restraint and resilience that is bar none. But I still want to bring it to light. And so one of the things that people have hit me up about is, I post a lot of videos on social media about either positive police interactions or negative police interactions. But one of the things that irks me is that it feels like I can't win sometimes. And here's what I mean. I'll post a positive police video, and then I get somebody that comes on there and says, all you post is positive police stuff. Why don't you show the negative things that officers are doing and talk to that? Because we all know that not all police officers are good. So then I post the video of officers that are doing something bad. And yes, I have posted videos where officers don't doing something bad. And then I get the people out there that are saying, you don't know what this officer's going through. You don't think this police officer, you shouldn't be putting them out there like that. You're Monday morning quarterbacking. And then on the flip side, the person that's always saying that I don't never call the bad apples out, they're the ones that are also saying, well, see, this one is clear cut. This video is clear cut. It's easy to tell that an officer is not doing what they're supposed to be doing in this one. How about you play the ones that are more on the verge of being controversial? So then I put the video out there that's on the verge of being more controversial, like the Alton Sterling one where it could have went both ways, and I do a breakdown on that one. Now it's like, well, that one, no, we all know because that one came out after the fact. My point that I'm getting at is that unfortunately we live in a society that if you can't tell, or if you're not saying what the other you want to hear, or if you're not saying what you think the other person is supposed to be hearing, then it's not accurate or it's not right. What I mean is that, let me break it down a little bit more. So the thing that frustrates me is this, is that oftentimes I'll say these things, but somebody has it in their heart so much so that even if you tell them everything that you want to hear, their ears aren't open to hear it the way they that it needs to be heard, and so they still think you're wrong about it. Like, until we start being able to have wisdom and understanding to hear true context of things, we're not going to move forward. Like, people are just so stuck on being on the left side of the fence that even if you show them all the videos in the world that would make them switch to the right side of the fence, their ears are closed and they're never going to hear it anyway. And that's what's so frustrating, is because I've taken so much heat from the community, but I've also taken heat from police officers because I'm doing something that's typically not common. I'm calling out police officers from doing bad work sometimes, but I'm also calling out civilians. And so I take heat on both ends, saying, how come you're not addressing this, or how come you're not addressing that, or you only address this, or you only address that, as opposed to saying, man, thank you for doing what you do, because not a lot of people are doing that. And so until we could get to a point in society and say, you know what, I appreciate somebody that's actually taking the effort to go out there and at least trying to see things for what they are, thank you. Like, until we get to that point, we're not going to be able to move forward. Like, somebody said it the best to me was, and I have a friend of mine, he was actually supposed to be on the podcast today. He's a former police officer. He retired recently and he's doing phenomenal things. But he was like, Ryan, what's crazy? He was like, he did not realize from a police officer standpoint that it seems like police officers are so quick to defend other officers as opposed to just saying, you know what, like, we screwed up on this one. And I get what he's saying 100%. Like, and he said, I didn't understand that until I retired. And so sometimes what the community is trying to say is like, we understand that there's officers like AJ and Officer Tillman out there that are doing right things, but what we're trying to address is there's officers out there that are not doing these right things, but yet you have so many people out there trying to defend the bad officers that are doing bad work. And so I was like, wow, like, that makes sense to me too. And so I know I'm ranting, I know I'm going on a rant right now, but there's a lot of true statements that he said in that comment. But there's also like two sides of every coin. So I don't know where I'm getting at, man. I just kind of gone off on a tangent, man. But what's your thoughts on that?
No, you brought up a lot of good points, but you definitely brought the major point home. So I did an event yesterday, and the event was called Guns Down, Prayers Up. And it was actually a teenager who started this event. His friend was murdered by a gun, like some other teenager shot and killed his friend. So he started this group, this organization, and this is the first annual Guns Down Prayers Up event. He hit me up. He's like, AJ, he's like, I want you to be there. You're a leading force in the community, you know, blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, all right, yep, I'm gonna be there. So then he sent me a request, and this was the first request like this that I had, so it kind of caught me off guard. And he's like, hey, he's like, I want you to rap your Meek Mill rap that you wrote. So I'm like, I was like, okay. I was like, you know, we'll see. So I get there, I'm listening to the event. The event was powerful. It had a really good message. And I'm starting to think to myself, like, you know what? Like, I wrote a rap a while ago that really pertains to this situation at hand a lot more than the one that he originally wanted me to rap. Mm-hmm. So I give a little speech, right? The speech was powerful. At least I thought it was. The students and the adults, they were pretty receptive to the speech. And afterwards, I told him, I said, hey, look, I was originally going to do this rap. But sitting here talking to you guys and girls, I want to give this rap instead. And there was a line in this rap that I wrote, and I love this line so much. They stopped me after I said this line and gave me a standing ovation. And I had to wait an entire minute before I could finish. And the line is exactly this. It said, they say you should hate me because I'm the boys, meaning the police. Mm-hmm. They say I should hate you because you are black. The king said it best. Hate cannot drive out hate. Why? Only love could do that. So let's just do that.
Wow. Hey, so you gonna come on the podcast, just drop the mic right there.
Yeah, but you know, like in all seriousness, like
that's
think
powerful.
About that. Think about that from both ends. The world is telling us, if you're a police officer, you don't like him, he's black, right? And the world's telling us, hey, if you're a individual of color or a minority, you don't like the police, you don't trust them. But at the end of the day, somebody who changed the world so much broke it down in the simplest form. And he said, darkness cannot, or what did he say? Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love could do that.
Man, bro. And it's so true, bro. And you know what? If we can just live by those words, I think we've talked about it before on the podcast, man. If we can just live by the simple words of, like you just said, and just one simple act of kindness, one simple act of love, we can fix so many of these problems, man. But it seems like we're so conditioned to do the opposite. We're so conditioned to look for the hostility. We're so conditioned to look for the gossip. We're so conditioned to look for, just the next thing to go viral. I mean, I saw the other day, like, and granted, like, I'm not going to say the guy's handle because I follow him and he's funny. He's a comedian, but he put up a video of you, and the context was like, he was making fun of it in a comedic way, saying that it was whack, when we all know it wasn't whack, but he was doing it more so to get a joke, to make a joke about it. And I get it, like, I'm all about having good jokes and stuff like that, but he didn't realize, like, the level of influence that he had was probably more valuable to be, getting out there in the public than it was to have, like, a quick video go viral for him so he can keep his popularity going.
Absolutely.
And that's the unfortunate part about it.
The funny thing about that, and we talked about it, but I didn't tell you how it ended, is people were blowing me up. People were like tagging me in it, sending it to me. So I'm like, what is this? So I click on it, I watch it, and I'm like, whatever. Like, he don't like it. Because it was, to me, it came off like he was like trying to clown. And I'm like, I don't know. I never really knew the dude. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, he trying to come at me, but I don't care. Right?
That's what happens when you get to 100K.
Oh, listen to him. So what I did is I commented, and I just told him, like, who the young man is to me, how we met, what our relationship is, what it always will be. And within 5 minutes of me posting that, he deleted the video, and he actually sent me a message. And he said, hey, he goes, just so you know, I took the video down. Keep changing the world. I'm proud of you. So,
man, are you serious?
Yep.
Bro, that's so cool, bro. And I'm so glad that he recognized that, man. And I don't know, what's the timer say on that, Billy?
Hour 6.
Oh, okay, cool. So, the last thing I wanted to touch on real quick before we wrap this podcast out, I thought this was a good podcast, man. This is another one of our passion episodes, man, speaking from the heart. But one of the things I wanted to touch on, and I'm not sure what the status of is, I'm not sure what the status is of this kid right now. But last Monday or Tuesday, there was a fight at a middle school locally here. And during the fight, I guess this kid had been getting bullied for like 2 weeks. these two other kids, got in a fight with them. One of the kids punches the kid in the face. The kid, falls back. The other kid punches him, and as the victim goes down, as the kid that was being bullied, as he goes down, he hits his head up against the wall, and then it sent him into a coma. Last I heard, they were actually talking about pulling the plug on the kid. So I don't know if he's still alive or not. And so the kid's name is Diego, and my heart just breaks, bro. Like, I couldn't imagine my sons, or any of my kids, my daughter, going to school and getting, bullied and getting in a fight and then ending up in a coma, going to a place where they're supposed to probably be the most safest, but yet they go there and then they get hurt. And so that Wednesday night, I actually went to the town hall meeting, and the reason I went to the town hall meeting is just because I wanted to see what the climate was. I wanted to see where everybody was at with this, and this is all the school board members, all the board members, the superintendent, and then you had all the members of the community there. So it was all the local media agencies there, and it was a sad sight, man, because as I sat there, man, there was just so much arguing going on, bro. So much arguing. You guys aren't doing this. You guys are letting my kid get bullied. My kid is getting bullied because of you. You guys never did nothing. Then you have the school district trying to figure out and come up with solutions like, well, we tried this and we tried that. And going back to your quote right now and what you just said a few minutes ago, man, is if we had love for one another, then the love would cause us to stop, pointing fingers at each other and start pointing towards solutions. Yeah. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. Situations like that, they do make you very emotional. And a lot of times when you have emotions on board, you're going to say things in a way that you may not want them to come out. You're going to be more hostile towards another person that you may not want to be hostile towards, but emotion causes you to do that. But my point in this is that I heard something the other day that was so powerful. It says, emotions don't think, they react. And so I need you, as an officer, as somebody that's not an officer, whatever it may be, just remember that emotions don't think, they react. And that will cause you to do things that you may not want to do. And so what I need you to do is if you're ever in a situation where you feel and that emotionally this is affecting you in some type of way, take a step back, and I need you to start thinking. Because when you don't think and you just act or react out of pure emotions, you're probably going to do something that you don't want to do. And many officers that have gotten themselves in a situation, it may be because they have let the emotions get the best of them. You ever heard that phrase? I let my emotions get the best of me. It's because, you did let the emotions get the best of you and you weren't thinking about it, and vice versa. And so, my prayers go out to Diego's family. AJ, you and I, man, we have a lot of work to do, man. We are just now starting this work. And the reason I say we have a lot of work to do is because when I first started, Breaking Barriers United, when we first started It's Needed, and we started the work that we're doing, initially it was just to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. But what I've realized, man, it's so bigger than that, man. Like when you got kids suffering from bullying, I read articles, at least 3 or 4 articles this past week that are saying that that vaping is taking people's lives by the day. Like there's some kid out there that has 70-year-old lungs because he's been vaping. Like that's a problem. The bullying is a problem. So there's so much out there that's going on right now that we have to step up and find answers to. And so we're just getting started. And on that note, I do want to, on a high note, I want to end this on a high note is, man, we looked at the numbers, and it was a year ago on September 20th that we started this podcast. And since we started this podcast, we are now downloaded in over 47 countries.
Let's go.
We have over 202 ratings. All of our ratings for the most part are 5 stars, and there's only one rating that was not 5-star, and we know who that person is. The reviews are crazy. If you read all the comments, go on iTunes and stuff and just listen or read the reviews. The reviews are amazing. I'm going to need y'all listeners to start giving our stuff a rating. I'm going to need y'all to go on there. If y'all truly like this, give us a 5-star rating because it truly helps. But that's phenomenal. And then if you look at it from a social media standpoint, when I started my social media page, Breaking Barriers United, I only had 1,000 followers. And with the help of the Savage, with the help of AJ, I think we're over 20,000 followers.
Let's go.
TikTok is a new one. We just got a TikTok account 2 weeks ago, and I think we're already at 40,000 followers. And the reason that's important is not because a follower is so important, is because I know when we have a large amount of followers, it just means that gives us that much more of an opportunity for our message to get out there. And so AJ, I don't know what your following was a year ago today. I think you were probably around like 60,000 followers, maybe
if that.
Yeah, so you were at 50 or 60,000 followers a year ago. You're now over 100,000 followers. You're at over 300,000 followers on TikTok. And so, again, it's not about the followers. I just told the kids this morning in my presentations, it's not about the followers. It's not about the likes. It's not about the views. It's about the people that are able to hear this message and to carry out this message. And when we start doing that, when we start letting love lead, then things start to change, man. So that's what my nugget for the day is, man. What's your nugget for the day?
Oh man, you killed it. You are absolutely right. The numbers don't matter, but the people do.
Wow.
So when I started off by saying I'm 100K, I am absolutely proud of my 105,000 followers. Just because I know that's potentially 105,000 people who will see a positive police interaction probably almost every day, because that's what I try to post. You hit the nail right on the head, man. You hit the nail right on the head. Like, lead with love, lead with compassion, be resilient, stay strong. If you're thinking about joining the police academy, bring something to the table. If you're in the police force already, bring something to the table. Bring something positive to the table. There's a lot of negativity out there. Let's combat it. Let's combat it with positivity.
Boom,
let's get it.
Boom. So, hey guys, this episode is brought to you by the one and only Breaking Barriers United. We appreciate what you guys do. We have a lot of things coming. I mean, I said it all the time. We're living it out. I mean, so you guys may not always see it, but we are truly living it out. I just kicked off this morning my first presentation for the new school year. And so, man, I got a schedule that's unbelievable. Man, I sit back and just think like, man, I don't know how or when I'm gonna be able to do all this, but man, it's only because of you guys. I know AJ's picking up, so a lot of good things coming, man. You got any fair fouls, man? I totally forgot to think about fair foul before we got on. There's always fair fouls, but when it comes time to it, man, I always forget it.
I know. Yeah, I don't
fair foul that AB just busted everybody else's fantasy league, because I'm hot about that still.
Super foul. I do have another fair foul. You said that he's the best receiver in the game, and I don't know. Odell is a beast out there.
Hey, man. But, you know, he only saying that because he in Cleveland. That's the only reason you saying that.
Nah, Odell. I was a fan of Odell way before. I mean, dude is an animal. He's just he is an animal. He is an animal, man. He is an animal. But I wouldn't say my man. Well, he now better than my boy AB, because you can't be better than somebody that ain't playing. So true. So, real quick. I know we got off topic. Listen to me, please. If you're listening to this, if you're watching it, please share this podcast with somebody, whether it's a coworker, whether it's a friend, whether it's a stranger, whether it's just sharing it on social media. You know, we said it before, the numbers don't matter, but the people do. So the more people who we could have like a positive influence over and just to share this message with, the better. So please do us this favor.
Oh, 100%. We trying to make this the number one podcast out.
In the world, Craig.
In the world, Craig. Top flight of the world, Craig. Somebody actually said they want to get us to do a podcast with Joe Rogan. So if you somebody that's out there listening to this, I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. So let's make it happen. So send us your stories. If you have any motivation, if you have something out there that the world needs to hear, any type of testimony from what the work that you guys are doing out there that's maybe inspired by the work that AJ and I have done, send it to us, because we'd like to share your story. So that may be a new segment that we'll start to do, is start to share the testimonies that have come from this podcast. I know there's a few people that have reached out to me that are now in the hiring process with certain departments, and they said a large part of that is because we have motivated them throughout the hiring process. Some of them have actually recently got hired. Some of them are starting the police academy, and a lot of that is a large part of the work that you and I have been doing. So send us your testimonies, because we want to hear about it. And if we don't respond on social media, forgive us. It's not because we don't want to. It's just because part of getting bigger and part of growing means a lot of the responses we getting are this influx of them. So it's very hard to get to every single room. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we still love you. And if we do get to it, we still respond. So we love you guys. With that being said, we'll see y'all next week.
Peace.